David, meet some of our Geeks on Tour members and
Yeah,
others. Meet David Lieb, the product lead for Google Photos. Is that the right title?
it is. Yeah. We don't really spend a lot of time thinking about titles at Google, but yeah, my responsibility is to make sure that the product we build is the best thing that we can build for our users and make sure that we can turn it into a sustainable business. So I get to work with a bunch of talented people every day. It's a pleasure.
How many people are on the Google Photos team?
That's actually a thing I'm not supposed to say. We keep information like that private, just so I guess so our competitors don't know how big our teams are. But what I can say is it's a sizable team. In the grand scheme of things, you all would probably think it's very large, but within a company of 100 something thousand people, it's actually a very, very small team. So
And
yeah.
are they spread out over different international offices?
Yeah, we have, well, these days they're very spread out to about, hundreds of individual offices in people's homes. But in before COVID, we had four main offices here or down in Mountain View, California, LA, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then Sydney, Australia, actually.
We visited the offices in Sydney last year.
Ah,
That
oh,
was
great.
cool. Saw the blogger team there.
Okay.
And but yes, speaking of offices closed, is it, I think I heard Google announce that offices are closed through next summer? To next.
That's right. Yes, there's a bit of a nuance. We announced that voluntary work from home would last through at least next summer, and that was publicly announced. I think the goal that we had is just to give people a little bit more clarity on how they can plan their lives for the next period of time. We've got school situation opening, some of them not opening. People are trying to decide, should we renew our lease or should we move to a bigger place? Like these sorts of decisions. So that was intended to give people a little bit more flexibility and certainty.
So first, they have to know a little bit about the backstory here. You were a college student or a business school student with an idea for an app.
Yeah.
Built that app, it became wildly popular. You got millions of dollars of venture capital, and then Google bought you. How, what amount of time did all of that take?
Yeah. The answer is about 5 years, I guess. I can give a quick backstory. I was an engineer coming out of school. I worked at Texas Instruments back home in Dallas, Texas. That's where I grew up. And then eventually I decided I wanted to be responsible for more than just the engineering that I was working on. And so I decided to go to business school to learn business. And it turns out that literally the first week that I was in business school, I faced this problem where I was meeting all of my new classmates and I wanted to get their phone numbers so that I could text message them. And I found that it was just pretty cumbersome to do that to 10, 20, 30 new classmates. And so the iPhone had just opened up the App Store. You could build apps finally. And a friend and I decided, like, oh, let's try to build an app to make it easier to get phone numbers from the people that you're meeting. We called it Bump. It ended up being one of the most popular apps at the beginning of this mobile revolution that has occurred. We dropped out of business school. We came out to California. We raised some money and we tried to build a company. And yeah, we got 150 million people to install our app. We had lots of really interesting things that we learned. One of the things that we learned along the way was that people loved Bump mostly to share photos with their friends and family. And that was the key insight that led us to kind of do, I guess in the business, we call it a pivot, where you change your focus slightly to work on a different problem or a different solution. And that's what led us to build some photo sharing tools. And the last of which was an app that was basically a better photo gallery app. And yeah, Google saw that and told us, hey, that should be our Photos app for our Android platform, but perhaps broader than that. And we agreed. So we got acquired by Google and we came in and rebuilt that app using all of Google's amazing existing technologies. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of that. But that then became Google Photos. So yeah, been there coming on 7 years now. And it's been a really amazing ride.
And it's not just a job for you. I know. You do think that photos are important to people's lives. So how does it feel to have that importance of people's lives for over 1 billion people
Yeah,
under
it's
your control?
yeah, it's a amazing and daunting feeling, I suppose. I think when I look at how I can spend my time, I try to think about it in two different dimensions. One dimension is how many people's lives can I make better? And obviously, like serving 1 billion people around the world is amazing scale. Very few people get to work at that level of scale. But the other thing I think about a lot is to what extent do I or can we help people's lives? And if you're building an app that helps you buy stuff on the internet, that's awesome. But there's a certain level of meaning or value to people's lives. And I think, for me at least, helping build the home for people's memories is a level of importance or value that is pretty rare. So doing both of those dimensions, the depth of the value and the extent of the reach is pretty unique. And so, yeah, I'm very happy to be doing what I'm doing.
That just reminds me, I don't know if you know, but I was actually educated professionally as a lawyer, and I only lasted in that profession a couple years because I did not feel like I was a productive member of society. And yeah, the teaching and the managing photos feels good. So, and I'm sure glad you're doing what you're doing. I also heard you say once that when you're deciding about features to build, that you would try to think of your photo app like a really smart friend
Hmm.
who could spend their entire day doing nothing but managing your photos. And if they were doing that, what would you have them do? Do you still use that technique?
Yeah, we sure do. It's what we call a thought experiment, where it allows you to think about what you should prioritize and what you should build through the lens of a thing that's very familiar, which is a human being. And actually, this was the tool that we used to decide a lot of the feature set of Google Photos when we first launched it. And yeah, literally, the main design lead on the team at the time and I would just sit down and say, all right, I'm going to help you with your photos. You've got me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What do you want me to do? And we tried to use that as a device to decide what things were most important to build and what things were relatively less important to build. And I think, I would say probably the biggest challenge or struggle that we face day to day is just deciding what things to go build. Because, I'm sure I'll hear all of your feature requests here in a minute, but there's obviously so much more to build at all times. That's always the case. And using this framework of, all right, you've got a little bit more time now. What would you like to do for this person? I think it's a good framework to kind of reinforce that while we all want all of these features to be built with limited resources, like if there's literally one person who could help you with your photos, what are the things that you would like that person to prioritize and do first before doing these other things? So that is a tool that we use, I would say, daily on the team.
Cool. And I think it also points out something that people in our generation need to understand is the importance of the artificial intelligence, the importance of the fact that you are building a tool that does the photo management for us, not giving us tools to do it ourselves. I mean, I field a lot of people's questions about how they want to be able to manually tag. They want to be able to make folders and make subfolders. And I say, well, then Google Photos just isn't the tool for you. Google Photos is intended to do it for you. What say you?
Yeah, I think that insight is really important. And when we looked at the market or the space 5 years ago before we launched, we certainly saw some trends. And a couple of the trends were that people were taking more and more photos and videos. The explosion of mobile, the fact that you had a great camera in your pocket at all times, meant that people were going to take 10 times as many photos, maybe 100 times as many photos as they were taking previously. And we ourselves, as some of the folks maybe that were on the leading edge of that shift, we felt it ourselves. I remember when we were working on Bump, I, on almost a daily basis, had to like figure out how to organize all my photos, where to put them, how did I like get them all into one place that I could access wherever I wanted. So we saw all these trends and we kind of projected out a few years and we realized this is going to be a big problem for the world. Like people aren't going to have a way to do this because the ways we were doing it, which many of you probably experienced over the years, taking photos from your digital camera, uploading them to your computer, deciding what folder structure to place the photos in. We felt that process just wouldn't work. It would break down. It wouldn't be something that a billion people in the world would actually go do on a daily or weekly basis. So yeah, our approach was, great, that's going to have to go away and we need a better answer. And so our answer was, just put all your photos into this space and let's let AI and algorithms help do the majority of that work for you. And I think what we've seen is that largely has worked. And I think what we are maybe now today, 5 years in, starting to contemplate is, to what extent should we try to go build some more of those features that maybe people want? People who are maybe a little bit more tech savvy and have a little bit more time on their hands and actually want to put in that effort. We're going to try to find ways to build at least some of those tools for people.
Okay, great answer. Thanks. Google Photos just passed its 5-year birthday.
Yeah.
And you celebrated, if you will, with a new logo and a new design and the coolest new feature, the maps. And I've heard you say several times that it was like your most requested feature. So I just want to know, what does that mean? And for people who really, really want some feature, what can they do to try to make it?
I better be careful with my answer. It definitely was. From the day that we launched, there were a lot of people who wanted a way to see where they took their photos and see it on a map. And to be honest, we were pretty hesitant. I personally was very hesitant to build something like that right away. And the reason is that when I looked out at the existing solutions that did that, I just thought they weren't that good, to be honest. Like, they weren't that useful. It was a map with a bunch of push pins in it, and you had to do a lot of work to experience your photos when looking at that map. So we hesitated. We didn't build it for 5 years. And finally, we kind of had an insight on how to design that in a new way to approach that we thought people actually would love. And the insight was basically, you want to show a map, but you also want to see your photos in a consumable way at the same time. So if you look inside the product today, you'll see this map view on the search tab, which is kind of this dual pane structure where there's a map on the top and a grid of photos that you're very familiar with on the bottom. And as you pan the map, the grid updates, and as you scroll the grid, the map updates. And so it's we think a much more compelling way to do it. And so, yeah, the way that we heard from users that they wanted it was in all the channels that we have. We heard it through in-app feedback. You can go inside the Google Photos app and you can tap send feedback whenever you would like. And we look at all of that feedback. We get, I think, thousands or maybe even tens of thousands of submissions per day through that channel. And so we have actually some separate AI that tries to organize and categorize all that feedback that we get and bubble the top feedback to people like me. We also hear it in our in-person interviews. We have a team of many researchers that go and spend a lot of time talking directly to users all day long, and they hear a lot of these sorts of feedbacks and feature requests. I also try to hear it from people directly on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, you can send me your feedback directly there. And I'm at least so far pretty good about responding to feedback there. So I would love to hear what you have to say there as well. So yeah, that's our job. My job is to make sure that we're hearing all the requests from people and not just building everything that people say they want, but trying to understand what they really want and build the right answer for that.
I know you understand what you think you want, but
yeah, it's actually like a really big problem. And as a consumer myself, I do this as well. I look at products that I use and I say, why don't they just do this? But given the work that I do, I understand that like what I think I want in a certain product might not actually be the best way to solve that problem because I don't fully understand that product. So I try, when I'm giving feedback to my colleagues who work on other products, I try to share the problem I have or the goal that I've got. Like, why do I want the feature that I say I want? Instead of saying, you got to build this feature, I try to say, hey, when I'm using Gmail, for example, and I get a new email message, I would like to understand more context on the last time I received an email from that person or whatever it might be. And I feel like that's a better way to help the team understand what your actual goal is, and then they can build the right feature.
Great. Couple of comments. Number one, for all of our members here, if you have not yet explored the map feature, I did do a video on it. It's number 640. So you can go to the Geeks On Tour, make sure you're logged in as a member, and video number 640 gives you a little overview of the map. And it is cool. It is cool. And number two, then, what you mentioned about feedback. So that's right in the Google Photos app under settings now, or is it now under, anyway?
I believe it's, you tap on your account in the top right, your face.
The account button, and then feedback, help and feedback is the bottom of that. When you tap on feedback, you write, and 10,000 a day. So who looks at that?
Well, first it goes through a bunch of algorithms that try to categorize and call out the accidental feedback or the malicious feedback, and then it goes to a team that we have that tries to like understand and categorize that feedback, and then that passes on to the product and the design teams.
Okay. So now I have a few questions, but these were also questions that got submitted from people as well. So we'll start with that. My biggest issue, I love how Google Photos keeps everything for me, and I can search and I can find, but when I scan a photo, it has today's date on it. Google gives me a easy way to change the date, but if I download that photo, the date is lost. Is there some technology reason why that can't be done, or if I wait long enough, will it happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. We hear this feedback a lot, actually. So the answer is a little complex. I'll try to find the right way to explain it. Today, when it comes to timestamps, there isn't a reason we can't do that. The actual answer for why we haven't done it yet is that it's far more complex than you would imagine. And I'll try to just give like a quick explanation of this. When the app identifies a new photo on your device, we try to kind of create a fingerprint for that photo, which consists of the pixels of the photo itself, as well as all of the other information embedded in that file. And that's how we decide whether this photo has already been uploaded or if it is yet to be uploaded and we need to upload it, the app needs to upload it. And the challenge is everything about that file, if you alter any of it, that fingerprint changes. And the app would need to keep track of which photos it's previously uploaded and then altered the fingerprint and then keep track to not upload that photo again. So it's a little complicated. I think the team does plan to eventually satisfy this for timestamp edits like you talked about. But let me give a separate answer, which is there might be metadata that we support inside of Google Photos that actually isn't supported by the file format that is used on your device. So the JPEG file format, for example, it does support timestamp, but it might not support other tags that we decide to implement inside of Google Photos. So we won't actually be able to do this for all of the things that we may choose to add. And so deciding like how we should approach that, when should we go and alter the file that actually sits on your disk, and when should we not do that? It's not a trivial question, and that is why we haven't just like fully supported all of these things.
And so same answer for descriptions?
Yeah, descriptions, the EXIF format, which is part of JPEG, I believe it does support some notion of description, but again, it's not the same exactly as what we support in Google Photos. So making sure those things are mutually supported is a bit of a challenge.
Well, I assumed it was something very difficult to do because I also assumed that I am not the only one that wants it.
Yeah.
So, well, okay. Next, then, any hope for people who want a dedupe command? They want to
Mm.
automatically eliminate duplicates.
Yeah. Yeah. So my first answer is you already have it to some extent, and you might not even realize it. So Google Photos does not allow identical photos to be in the system. And again, by identical, I mean the exact same file, the same resolution, the same metadata embedded in the file. If you attempt to upload a photo that is already in Google Photos, the system will identify it and say, oh, I already have that photo. I don't need to upload it. What the question might be asking is a slightly different one, and we call these near duplicates. So either photos that you have processed in some other application, maybe you edited them, maybe you changed the photo to black and white, so it's in your head the same photo, but according to the computer, it's a different photo. That's one problem. Another problem is this idea that often when we take photos these days, because it's kind of free to take additional photos, we often snap, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 photos in a row. And we think of those as duplicates, although again, like to the computer, they are completely separate photos. We are thinking about tools that might help people manage those photos, these like near duplicate types of photos. And I think it's a thing that we'll probably try to figure out over the next several years, months, who knows.
Okay. Those of you who, I mean, I'm assuming that everybody here uses Google Photos, right? Yes, everybody here uses Google Photos. Then how many of you use it daily?
Wow, great.
Okay, a handful, but not everybody. How about weekly, would you say? All right. And then just kind of rarely, it's your backup. You don't really use it, it's your backup. Okay. Now, this one is fun for me. How many of you are Google Photos teachers?
Oh, wow, great.
Look at all that. Yeah. That
Yeah,
that
that's
that
awesome to
is
see.
our biggest following is other teachers. Yeah. And and let's see. Of the things you use Google Photos for, what is kind of most important to you? Is it being able to, how many of you is the most important thing is that you can search your lifetime of photos? Okay. How about sharing? Is that the most important thing? Yes, I knew that would be Joel and is Hank here. Okay. And how about editing? The fact that you can just edit them right on your phone. I think that might be my most favorite thing there. Anything else? Or let me actually, I think you might be interested, David, to hear Laura Baker. Are you able to unmute and say something? Because I know you are one of the few people I know who, at least your husband, uses it for business. You there?
Okay, yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. So just
Yes.
give us a little bit of a brief explanation as to how Greg uses it. Jeff.
Jeff, yeah. So we are RV inspectors. So we go in and inspect RVs, big, thumping big RVs when people are buying them. And we take somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 600, anywhere from 500 up pictures in the course of inspecting the interior and
Wow.
exterior systems in an RV. And so we write a report and we embed some of those pictures into the report, but it's a little bit awkward because we can't take the pictures directly from Google Photos. We have to download the pictures we want to embed in the report, but then we send a link, we share a link to share the file folder with all of the photos with our client as soon as we're completed the inspection.
Interesting.
And
What do you, if I,
absolutely go. Yeah, so go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to ask, how do you write that report? Do you write it in like Google Docs? Do you write it in Microsoft Word? How do you actually like create the document?
It's created in an application that's actually designed for the safety industry called
I see.
iAuditor.
Okay, got it. And that program, for whatever reason, doesn't well accept embedded JPEGs or links or anything like that.
It does, but I have to be able to upload them from something that I can contact directly. So if I'm using it, when I get the photos in Google, into Google Photos, I then have to download them to something that I can access on my computer when I'm writing the report.
I see. Okay.
Or,
Yeah, like
or I have to write it on my phone, which is not too easy to do.
yeah, I was wondering if it was similar. Like I often have to write documents for work and I use Google Docs, but I could use whatever program I'd like. And my workflow is I take photos on my phone, I let them upload to Google Photos, then I access my Google Photos account on the computer at photos.google.com. And then from there, I can just right click on a photo and say copy image. And then I go over to Google Docs and I can say paste, and then it actually pastes that JPEG into that application if the application supports that. So you might explore that, see if that might help and work for you.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
cool application. It's great to hear people using it in ways that we did not design it for. So that's great.
It's amazing. We could not do what we're doing without it.
Love it.
Yeah, yeah. And there is one more, is Julie. Julie, would you like to say a few words about how you use Google Photos for your our Dive Club album archive?
Okay. Yes. I was thinking about that during this presentation. I belong to a scuba diving club along with Chris and Jim. And it's my function with the club to gather photographs from our various activities, and I put them onto Google Photos, and it's very easy to share with the entire club. The unique problem that I have, in some cases, we create an album so that everyone on the trip can contribute. Everyone's camera or phone is not set to the same time zone. Lots of times it's an overseas dive trip. So if we have 10 people sending me pictures, I'm having 10 different time zones possibly.
Yeah.
And when I put the album together, I want to create a storyline. I want the trip to show in chronological order.
Yep.
So in my case, what I find that I need to do, I need to do a lot of work on my hard drive, on my computer. I change the dates, and then I upload them into Google Photos so they fall into the proper sequence. And
I see.
I don't know of any other way. I can't just take their photos and put them into Google because it wouldn't run in order unless I do a custom sort, which I don't like to do, especially when
Gotcha.
I'm dealing. Sometimes the last trip that we took to Fiji was almost 500 pictures.
Yeah,
So,
interesting. Well, the
kind
only
of
thing I'll
unique.
say, there is a way, you might not have found it, but there is a way to edit the timestamp of multiple photos at once inside of
Yes.
Google Photos.
Yes.
So you can use that perhaps instead of the way you're doing it on your hard drive. I don't know if our way is easier or harder.
I've done that, but the only thing I don't like about that is that when I download the pictures, if someone wants to download, then
Yeah,
as
it's not
we all
fixed
know,
on the download.
the
Yep.
date changes.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's
Got it.
about it for
Makes
me.
sense. Okay. Yeah, that's great to hear. That's valuable to know.
So
Thanks.
there is one other thing that I do. I used Picasa long before Google Photos came over, and I kind of got spoiled using the text feature. When I do put my show together, I do identify where it is and sometimes who the people are in the picture, because a lot of times we pull pictures out from different albums, make one big slideshow, and people are always saying, "Where was that taken? Where was this?" So I do still use Picasa to enter text onto the
Got
photo.
it. And you say text per photo, like you want to put a little caption or a little write-up
Yes.
next to the photo or on the photo.
I put it right on the bottom in the right-hand corner of the photo.
Yep,
The same
got
thing
it.
you would
Yeah,
write in the old-fashioned.
of course, yeah, on the back of the photo, right? Exactly. We actually do have this feature, although I will admit it is very hidden. So when you're looking at any photo inside of Google Photos, if you're on web, you can hit the I button in the top right, and they'll pull out this little pane. We call it the info pane. And there you can type a caption. And on mobile, on any photo, you can swipe up and do the same. But it is not the way I want it yet, to be honest. We're going to try to improve that experience. For one, if you take the time to write a caption there, we don't display it alongside the photo. We don't display it on top of the photo, which I think is probably what a lot of people would want. So we're going to try to make some improvements to what we call the caption experience over the next year or so, maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's excellent. I would love better caption experience. But what Julie and a lot of other people have asked for is actually markup, text right on the photo, which you now have, and it is wonderful on Android. Will that ever be coming to web and iOS?
Yeah, well, I don't want to commit to anything today, but we certainly heard this feedback before, and we all on our Pixel phones, we love that feature as well. So I think it's certainly in the running as something to add.
Okay, next question. Movies. Movies used to be my favorite. And then at one point in time, either 2 or maybe even 3 years ago, you bought a video app company, and I kept expecting great things from the little movie maker, and they never came. And now you're making them vertical only. I don't like that.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people on Twitter asking about this. Yeah, so to answer the first part of your question, we acquired a startup that was building some tools to help you assemble multiple videos into one kind of montage video. That technology and that design actually did come into the product. Maybe it happened before you even noticed, and that's what you've been experiencing. This interface, I don't know if any of you have used it, where you can kind of drag photos up and down in the timeline. You can trim them how you would like. That is all design and technology that we got from that startup. What you referred to at the end, this decision to move movies into portrait orientation instead of landscape orientation, that is something we did recently, and obviously it's not going to please everyone, and we're hearing it. The answer there is we do plan to give users control to decide whether they would like the output to be landscape or portrait. In this interim period, we decided to change it from landscape to portrait. And the reason behind that is that we simply looked at all of the data that we can see about what orientation photos and videos are in when they get uploaded to Google Photos. And over the last few years, the mix has really shifted. And the majority of videos that people upload to Google Photos these days are actually in portrait orientation. So in this period of time where we can only support one until we do some more work, we decided to change it to portrait to satisfy those users. But of course, there's still a lot of people who record videos in landscape. I do it myself sometimes. And it's particularly frustrating when you have a movie you're trying to make that is comprised of entirely landscape videos, and then we force it to be a portrait output. Like, that is extremely frustrating. I totally hear you. So we're going to improve that. It's really just a thing that it takes a little bit of extra work to make that happen, and we're trying to prioritize that work on our team.
Okay, and thank you. That's I couldn't ask for more. And will it ever be available on web, or does the technology absolutely require the mobile platform?
Yeah, I don't want to misspeak. It's certainly something that we're looking at. The truth is, building some of these features on web is a whole lot harder because you don't have as many processing tools available on the web platform that you do on native apps on a phone. And that's why some features come to web a bit later. But I think we do understand that there might be a need for that. And I think there are some folks working on things like that.
Okay. Next question. The for you has been removed from, and for you, if you all probably remember this, is where it was first the assistant,
Right?
then for you, and now it's basically gone. But some of the little automatic things are showing up in the memories, and
Right.
for you is still. So I'm assuming that this is something still in transition. I know that the Google team really put a lot of work into making these cute little automatic movies and automatic collages and animations. So will they be coming back?
Yeah, they're actually there. They are now moved to that new memories interface at the very top. The reason for this is, yeah, we do love them, and we know that our users really love them as well. And what we found was that despite people really loving them, relatively fewer people were actually going to the For You tab or to the Assistant tab because there were a lot of things to go to in the product, and people just didn't go there natively. So what we decided to do was try to simplify the experience and bring those things that we know people really love to a place that they already were going to go to. So that's why we decided to move them into the memories carousel. And once we moved them there, we decided, well, there's no reason to keep this For You tab if people are able to see them there. So yeah, check out the memories carousel at the top of the app, and you'll see a tile there that's called recent highlights. And that is where we are putting the majority of those automatically created assets for you. So you'll tap through that, you might see a collage, you might see an animation, a stylized photo. That's where we now put them all.
Even before you save them? I mean, I know I've seen them there, but I thought they were ones that I'd already saved on the For You on the computer.
No, yeah, the ones that you haven't saved yet, you'll see it. And in fact, on the ones that you have yet to save, there'll be a button in the bottom that allows you to save that to your library so that it's permanently a part of your library.
Okay. Still, you have to kind of scroll through all your recent highlights, but
That is true, yeah. I think what we found is a lot of people really love those memories that we serve them at the top. And basically the math that we did was, if we want to make sure that people have the ability to see these things, where is the best place in the app that will maximize the chance that they see them? And the answer, according to the math, was in that top part of the app.
Okay, got it. And one more of mine, and then we'll get to the audience, and that is, why did you take away? I know you hate. I'm sure you hate that question. Why did you take?
No.
Okay.
The short answer is very few people are using it. We look at the data to try to decide, like, how often do people use these different views that we provide them. And the year view, we made a graph of, the day view, the month view, the what we call, I think, the comfortable view, which is the even bigger view, and the year view. And the year view was being used by like less than 1% of people. So it was like a very rarely used feature. Now you might ask, like, but why take it away? Like, you already had it, like, why not just keep it? And the answer is every feature that we have in the app and keep in the app, it adds complexity to the code base. And this is a little bit of a hard thing to maybe understand, but an engineer on our team, when she is writing the next feature, she needs to make sure that her feature that she's building, let's say it's, some caption thing, she needs to make sure that her feature works across all of the parts of the product. And so the more stuff you've got in the product, the more work she needs to do to make sure that it works across all these different things. So we made the decision on the year view that because so few people were using it, we should get rid of it to simplify the code base and allow us to build features faster going forward.
All right. How about, you want to pick a couple of questions from our audience? I mean, I still have more that you sent in, but I know people are asking questions in the chat here, and let's see a couple of them.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, Chris, while we're doing that, sorry,
Yeah.
I was wondering, I would love to get a photo with all of you, to commemorate this. Is it okay if I just take a screenshot on my computer here? If everybody, if you don't want to be in the photo, just maybe kill your video for a minute, and I'm gonna take a screenshot here. So, all right, 3, 2, 1, smile. All right, thanks. That's great. My team's gonna love it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Martin Brossman, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
No, you have to do it again, Dave, because Chris and I weren't in there for that one.
Oh,
So
you weren't? Okay, let's do
Oh,
it again.
okay.
All right.
Do it again.
Wait, oh
Oh,
no,
it's
we don't have Chris.
great.
We don't have Jim. There's Jim. All right. Smile. 3, 2, 1. All right, thanks guys.
Okay. All right, Dallin.
Martin Brossman had some good questions or comments about it. Martin, do you want to unmute and
Unmute. There we go. I got permission to unmute. Hey, how you doing? David, so excited about the product. I've been a fan from Picasa to Google Plus to this. And one of the things I was curious about, because I've always been a fan of Google products and the brilliance behind them, is it seems like when they have a product like Picasa, then they move to Google Plus and Google Photos, it's almost like they lose all the wisdom from the last product, and trying to understand that in upgrading it. I know I just couldn't imagine the complexity of your job, but is there any, I would love to see kind of a commitment of trying to recapture the brilliance of the past, because this is a pattern I've seen across all of Google products. Brilliant product, not well marketed or educated. I love it, and then it dies. Then another brilliant product, not well marketed or education, and dies. And I just love to see, that's why I'm so excited Chris has the book, because she's the leader in making this done. And I just curious, is there any, I know how complicated it is, but any commitment to try to recapture some of that? There's so many features I miss from both Picasa and the others.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's fair criticism in many cases. The way that we look at it is we try to make sure that if we're going to build a new product that is intended to be the follow-on product to some other product that we have built, the thing that we try to make sure we do is any data that you have like put into the system, we try to carry forward as much of that as possible. So for example, when we moved from Picasa to Google Plus and then to Google Photos, we tried the very best we could to make sure that your photos and videos would actually like move forward with the new product. You might ask, like, why, like, Picasa was great, why did you get rid of it? And the short answer is it was a great product for the era in which it was created, for the desktop photo era, right? When we had digital cameras or scanners and we wanted to keep all the photos on our hard drive. But the world changed. We all have mobile phones now, and we use our computers relatively less. And we see a path where in the future, we probably won't use our computers really at all. In fact, I think this was one of the questions Chris asked me before this. When we look across the entire Google Photos user base, the 1 billion people who use the product, I don't actually have the actual number on it, but I suspect probably more than half of them don't use a computer on any regular basis. So these are the sorts of things that we try to look at and understand when we decide how to progress our products. People sometimes with a critical view look at us and say, oh, when are you going to get rid of Google Photos and build the next thing? And I guess what I would say to that is there is no evidence in the past of Google deprecating or killing a product that has reached the scale that Google Photos has reached. So I have no fear, like it certainly wouldn't happen on my watch. And I have no fears that if one day I go and do something else, that would happen. I'm sure the product will evolve and change. And perhaps 10 years from now, the product will look very different than it does today. But I think our commitment is that we are building the home for your memories. And we obviously don't want to compromise that in any way.
And well, the biggest one was, it seems like they've lost the technology of the past products, the features that don't get migrated, as though they're, I worked for IBM and we had different silos that never talked together in the same building. Just very concerned because it's so easy to do that in a large corporation. That's my concern, not the data, the brilliance of, like collages in Picasa, still not in Photos, search in Google, that type of thing.
Yeah, at least in our case, I don't believe it is based on any organizational boundaries that might exist. I suspect in the times that we have done that, it is much more to do with we need to, in order to move a feature forward to some other product, some work has to be done. And usually, if we don't do that, the reason is we think the work that we would apply to do that is less valuable work than we could do to build some other feature for users. So that's usually the rationale. It kind of gets back to that metaphor that we talked about at the beginning of, I'm your Google Photos. I am the person that wants to do stuff for you. I've got 1 hour on Sunday today before I have to go pack my hospital bag. What would you like me to build for you? And what we try to do is prioritize that work to be the thing that will be most valuable for our users. And for the times that we don't carry forward a feature, it's usually that feature relative to other things was just lower priority.
That's
and of course, like for some users, that's not true. Like for some users, perhaps for you, you would say, oh, but that collage feature in Picasa is more important to me than the thing you just built. And that is honestly the struggle that we face every day is we have 1 billion users and they're all very different and their use cases are very different. Some of them use it to take photos of RV inspections. Others use it for scuba diving. So we try our very best to build the feature set that will accommodate and provide value to as many people as we can.
Thank you so much. And also love hearing about the AI of how it's all working, but want to thank Chris for the great book that she has there.
Oh, isn't it great?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, here's your dollar, Martin.
Chris Wrzenski, you have a couple of good questions on the list there.
Okay. I would like to have first of all, we're a user that only, I don't want to get in deep like into all the features because I just want to use it as a sharing tool. And a lot of times I like to share photos to an email. I want to just paste them in. I don't want to have to go to a link. And in the old days, we used to have to go to a separate program and bring them down to 640 by 480 and then put them in. So I would like a button, a simple button, where I could select a bunch of photos and hit it and reduce their resolution, and so I could paste them in either individually as a group. And then beyond that, as a separate thing, I'd like to be able to zoom a photo very easily like you would on a copy machine. And I'll give you for example. We wanted to put a photo on a mask that somebody was selling, and we couldn't get it to fit. And so what we wanted to do is just zoom the photo a little smaller, save it, and send it to them. And there was no, if it was there, we didn't know what it is. We would like one button to do that. So that's my request. Keep it simple. And so that more people can use it, because it's a concept that we don't need to get into some of these deep programs, and I think that's would sell it better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. That's really good feedback. I think that is definitely a thing that we try our very best to keep in mind. Is some users really want to go deep and have a bunch of powerful features, but others, maybe like yourself, just want it to be simple and easy to use. And that is the tension or the balance that we try to navigate every day. To your question about zooming a photo, it sounds like what you wanted to do was make a photo smaller. So like add stuff around the outside so that it could be smaller on your mask. Yeah, we don't have a feature for that. If you wanted to do the opposite, if you wanted to make a photo larger, you can use our crop tool, which is inside of the editor, to actually make the part of the photo that stays smaller and therefore make it larger. But it's a great use case I hadn't really thought of before. Thanks for that. On email, I don't know what email program you use, but we try to do our best to make it easy to take a photo that you're looking at and just shoot it over to your email program, whatever you use on your phone, or if you're on your computer. You do have to kind of like download or right click and copy a photo and then paste it into your email program. But that's good feedback. We'll at least, I don't know if you use Gmail, but we'll do our best to try to improve that experience there.
Okay.
I have one of the other comments that Chris Wrzenski had made was about Snapseed, because Snapseed was integrated somewhat and kind of isn't now.
Yeah, I would say its integration level has been about the same since we launched Google Photos. For those who don't know, Snapseed is a photo editing app that Google produces, and it is kind of what I would describe as like a more powerful editing tool than what we provide inside of Google Photos directly. And it's really targeted for the folks who want to go deeper and want to have more control over how they edit their photos. So we've tried to make the integration with Google Photos pretty seamless so that you can use Snapseed if you'd like, and it kind of just works with Google Photos. I'm sure there's some warts and rough edges that we could probably polish, and maybe we'll do that in the future.
Since the last update, it is not there on the
Yeah,
iOS Google Photos.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. That's surprising to me. I can follow up and look into that.
Connection
I don't
seems
think
to
that's
have been
intended.
lost.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, thanks for the
I
heads
still
up.
have Snapseed on my phone and I can go to it, but it's not as easily connected as it
Okay.
had been.
On Google Photos.
Interesting. All right, that's an action item for me to go follow up on.
Chris,
Thanks.
shall I continue down the list?
No, I want it back.
Got it, girl.
We'll get,
Got it.
because this next one is something that I think all of our teachers have encountered that you might not even be aware of, David. We cannot mirror an iPhone screen to a projection. Yeah, how many of our teachers in this group have experienced that? You try to display your iPhone screen and you can't see Google Photos. You can only see individual photos, yeah. It works great on Android. You can screen mirror to a projection or a TV or whatever using Android, but if you do it with iOS, you just get the Google Photos logo until you show one picture, and then you can see the one picture, but you can't see the screen, so you can't teach.
Yeah, in terms of like mirroring on your iPhone using, I think it's called AirPlay, we probably can make that experience a lot better. It has probably not been a top focus of the team, so we'll take that back and see if we can improve it.
Okay. And this next one here has been asked by a lot of people. It has to do with albums. First of all, thank you very much for putting album sorting is now on the computer version, people. That just happened this last week. So if you've been wanting to sort albums using the computer, you can now do it. However, you still cannot.
Yeah.
Say add to album and find an album. You know,
Yeah. In the flow to add a photo to an album, we don't have a search feature in that flow. We know it's on the list to build. One thing that we did add recently, maybe in the last year or so, was on that list, we do try to bubble up the recently touched albums. So if you are in a iterative process where you're adding photos to the same album over and over, you'll see that album bubble to the top and make it a little bit easier to find. But we agree, we should add search there to that list of albums.
Good. That's all we can. All right, I do see a couple of hands. Shall we call on? Charlie has had his hand up for a long time. So you remember what you wanted to say, Charlie?
I have grandkids that are almost 20 years old now, so I know those pictures go back to 2000, and yet on my Google Photos, which would have migrated from Picasa, have only transferred since 2006. So there's about 6 years of grandchildren photos that are somewhere else. That's long before you got involved, David.
It is, but yeah, I can maybe try to answer it. What that sounds to me like is that the photos from this 2000 to 2006 period actually sounds like they weren't ever uploaded to the Google server. And perhaps instead they were just locally available on the computer that you were looking at in Picasa, perhaps. So maybe what I would advise, if you still have that computer somewhere, I bet those photos are sitting on the hard drive of that computer, and then you can find them and upload them to Google Photos now.
Well, hopefully those photos got transferred, because I've been through several evolutions of computers since then.
Sure,
but I don't think I've lost any data, so I'll look at that.
Interesting. Okay.
Warren.
Yes, David. Collage. You know, we had all the controls in Picasa to do a nice collage. Google Photos, you have no clue which picture they're going to make dominant, where they're going to go, anything.
Yeah.
And my thoughts are that if a picture's worth 1,000 words, collage is worth 5,000 or 6,000 words. And if I want to put a story together and put on Facebook, I want it to say what I want to say, and I have to go to Picasa to do that.
Yeah, yeah, it's great feedback. I agree. Our collage tool, I forget who was mentioning it earlier, but it is, I think Chris was saying, we designed that tool to be super, super simple for people so that there was no extra work you had to do. But that comes as a trade-off, and it makes it so that you can't have more control in the way that you're describing that you would like. I think this is a challenge in general that we face, which is for us as Google Photos, where our predominant service is to be this home for your memories, to what extent should we go and build out really, nice feature sets in each specific area of the product? So collages is a great example. Should we go build the world's best collage editing tool, or should we let other companies do that or other products do that, and instead we focus more on building the best home for your memories? That is a question that we have to answer on a daily basis. And I think, at least right now, the answer on collages is we're going to build something simple for folks who just want to make a collage. But if you're more interested in control over collages, there's plenty of apps on the App Store that you can go download that will let you do all sorts of fantastic things with collages. So that's kind of where we stand right now.
I think it goes to, being, a real firm, staunch Google supporter across the board, Pixelbook, Pixel Phone, and earbuds and photos and everything. It's when we had something good that Google gave us, and then they take it away, we feel like something in their pocket,
Yeah. No, I hear you. I would feel the same way. And yeah, I think on this particular feature, like, we would love to build a better collage editing tool. It's been on our roadmap for a while. It just is lower priority than many other things, and so we haven't gotten around to building it yet. But it's not crazy that one day we would actually do that.
I'll be patient. We love everything you've done. I was amazed when Google Photos went to the computer, because I thought, for the phone, it was made for the phone. Who cares what you're going to do on your computer,
That's great to hear. Well, yeah, that's awesome.
Great job.
Thanks very much.
Okay, I have one that was submitted earlier from Mary Campbell. In searching for people, how about alphabetizing their names? It's hard to find people when you get a bunch of them.
Yeah, Mary, that's a great question. I think it's a great idea. We should, put that on our list of things to do. I think one of the challenges that we might face when we're trying to prioritize building that feature is, at least today, not everyone has gone through and labeled the faces that are in the people section of Google Photos. And so this feature of alphabetizing by name would only help the people who have actually done that. And so that might be one of the reasons the team hasn't prioritized this feature higher.
Okay, this one is from Joel Goldstein. Is there a way to copy your entire Google Photos library to another cloud service for an additional backup?
Yeah, well, one way you can do it today is you can use this service that Google provides called Takeout, which allows you to download the entirety of your Google Photos library in the form of zip files onto your hard drive, and then you can upload those to the other cloud service that you would like. Other than that, today, I don't know of any great integrations that have been built to help you directly transfer stuff from one cloud service to another. The one that comes to mind that I think is quite good is Facebook recently built a tool that allows you to export photos from your Facebook account over to Google Photos. They used one of our APIs to build that. And I think that's a great service. And honestly, I think more interoperability or more ability to transfer data between different cloud services is something that consumers are going to want. And, companies, Google included, probably need to invest more to allow that to happen. So that is something that's on our mind.
Okay. And this one is still kind of like the duplicate finder, but could Google, this is a feature request, I think, to be able to find several versions of a similar image so you can select the one you like best for printing, downloading, or sharing.
Yeah, it's a great idea. It's definitely something that we are considering. One of the other reasons people care about this a lot is these multiple copies of photos, they take up your space in Google Photos for those users who are uploading in the original quality, which is space limited. And so, yeah, we're considering a bunch of tools that would help people better have control over which of those they want to keep, which of those they want to get rid of. You could probably also use it for this use case of selecting the best one for editing or for printing.
This one is from Thomas Parks. I would like to be able to upload videos from Google Photos to YouTube again.
It's a good question, Thomas. I think you can. I'm curious. Maybe I'm not aware of any regression that happened where you used to be able to do this, but you can't anymore.
True.
You know,
yes.
Chris? Yeah, can you explain?
Well, YouTube just recently went through an update and totally got rid of their last one. Now it's YouTube Studio. And before,
so when you're on YouTube and you want to pick a photo that's in your Google Photos, that used to be there, you're saying, and now it's gone?
There used to be an upload from Google Photos, yes. And
I see, got it. I see, got it. Okay, that's great to know. I wasn't actually aware of that. Let me look into that and see if we can improve that. Yeah.
Right, I just have kind of a general one, two questions that I get asked all the time, and I would just love to hear your take on it. What can you say to calm people's fears that Google Photos will disappear someday?
Yeah, I kind of addressed this, I think, a little bit earlier when I was just talking about the scale of products. Google Photos has reached a quite massive scale. We have more than 1 billion people using it every month. I don't see any world in which any company really would just get rid of a product that has that much usage. What I'm sure we'll do over the years is evolve the product, try to improve it. All of those improvements probably won't be viewed as positive by every single person who uses it, but that is certainly our intent. I think even like maybe one additional thing I would add to that is the nature of Google Photos being the home for your life's memories. That is our goal. Like, we're trying to build this thing that allows you to have the record of your life available to you and able to share with whomever you would like to share it with. That is, by nature, that type of product is one that should last for a very long period of time. If it didn't, it would be quite poor at satisfying that mission. So I think in particular with Google Photos, I would be extremely surprised if any time in the future, Google or any company that has a similar product were to decide to get rid of it.
Good, I like that. And what I've told people, unless Google as a company goes away. And I said, and if Google goes away, we have a lot bigger problems with photos.
Yeah, well.
One other comment there. I have been thrilled to see that Google is coming up with something to charge for. That tells me that they are getting successful at monetizing it. Like the photo books. I love my photo books and my canvas prints. And these are just ordered directly from Google Photos, and my credit card payment went directly to Google Photos. So is it successfully starting to monetize it?
Yeah, that is certainly one of our two main business lines, selling people printed products based on their photos. That one in particular, I really love because it's a type of product where we get to share some value that users get, right? A user like yourself, you order that canvas print, it's beautiful, probably cost you like $30 maybe. What's great is you love it and you're willing to pay for it, and it helps us monetize the service and subsidize all of the free users that use the product as well. So that's printed products is one of our two main business lines. The other main business line, some of you might be subscribers, is called Google One, which is a premium membership across Google. And one of the things you get in Google Photos is original quality storage at higher levels of quota. So you can get, instead of the 15 gigs that you get for free, you can get 100 gigs or 200 gigs or terabytes. And so those are the two main ways that we're monetizing the service. And I think, Chris, like your observation, I think is right. One of the ways that we ensure that Google Photos can last decades from now, hundreds of years from now, hopefully, is to make sure that it is a self-sustainable business. And so, one of the many focuses of our team over the last few years and going forward is to figure out ways that we can do that. The thing that I tell my team is I hope to work on Google Photos for a long time from now. But at some point, I'm going to retire or die or whatever. And I want to make sure that when that day comes, we've set up Google Photos to well outlast our own tenure on the project. So I think of it like a public library or an educational institute, where our goal is to set this thing up that it can well survive our own tenure on the project. So those are two ways that we're doing that today.
Excellent. And the second one that has to do with trust that I get asked all the time, so I'm going to put you on the hot seat, is what can you say to convince people that you are not using their photos for advertising or spying on them?
Right. Well, the straight answer is we don't, and we won't. That is kind of our commitment. Google Photos is a private space for your own personal memories. If we were to go and do something like that without a user's approval, if we were to go through and serve you ads based on the content of your photos without you understanding that and agreeing to it, it would violate that agreement that you make when you choose to use Google Photos. And so if we were to do that, it would hurt our business. It would hurt our trust. People wouldn't trust Google Photos to keep their life's photos. So that is kind of the business rationale for why we don't do it. And yeah, we don't. And I don't see any world in which we will.
Cool. Jalen, are there any last questions over there that you feel like we really need to get to? Unless, did you find it? No.
Well, there was one serious comment: do not degrade the usability or erode the usability on computers of Google Photos. Don't take away the web presence, because it really, although I do a lot with my phone, my go-to is Google photos.google.com.
Yeah, that's a great point. I myself use the web version of the product on a daily basis. So
Yeah,
we continue to invest in the web platform. I don't see that changing anytime soon. Perhaps in the distant future, when we have some totally new type of computer that we use instead of laptops or PCs, perhaps we'll change that, but I don't foresee that happening anytime soon.
You talked about the AI in Google Photos in the future. You chatted about that a little bit. One question was about transferring Google Photos from one Google account to another Google account without sharing it, and then, because someone who might be interested in changing their Gmail address but want to associate.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great question. My wife actually just went through this. She changed her last name after we got married, and she wanted to have a different Gmail account. And yeah, we don't provide a good way to do it, to be honest. This is a thing I've been pushing on inside of Google to try to improve. The workaround today that you can use is the best way to do it, I've found. In fact, this is what we did, is we have a feature in Google Photos called shared libraries, which allows you to connect your library to another person's library. The intent of this is for spouses or partners to be able to share photos more automatically between the two of them. So what we did is Jenna broke up with me on shared libraries and connected her shared library to her new Gmail account with her new last name. She shared all of her photos over to that new account. Then she severed that connection and kind of reconnected to me, so that now all of her photos are in this new account, but now we're back to the state where automatically we share photos with one another.
And would she then
the only downside?
Would she then be able to delete the photos on the original account?
Correct. She can. Yes. As long as they've been saved to the new account. So we give you an option of whether you would like to save them automatically or not. She chose to save them all. They're now all in her new account. And yeah, her old last name, she deleted a bunch of content out of that old account, so she didn't have to pay for storage on that account as well.
Yeah. But if you were actually deleting a Gmail account that was associated with a Google Photos library, that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that is the best workaround until we offer a more seamless way to just change your email address effectively.
Yeah, I find the shared library method works really well. I've taught people to do that.
Yeah. I think the one thing you don't get if you do that is if you've made a bunch of albums in your previous account. Those albums don't automatically carry over with shared libraries, which is a little unfortunate.
Even if you were to share the album?
No, if you share the album one by one, you can share it to that new account, and
Okay.
that new account can join that album. But we don't have a bulk way to do that today.
Gotcha. Not yet.
Not yet.
Betsy has a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, hi David. Thank you so much for all your valuable information today. Just a follow-up question to the, we were talking about monetizing and photo books. I know you've talked so far about, what does Google Photos do and should we let another company do it? But any thoughts about utilizing the data like description of a photo and maybe the text that goes into an album to be able to use that in a photo book?
Yeah, it's a great idea. We should totally do that, right? Like, it seems pretty obvious, actually. Like, if you've taken the time to write a description on a photo and then you're using that photo in a photo book that you are trying to make, we should at least make it optional where you can carry forward that comment to the photo book. Yeah, this is a great example of a feature that, everyone on our team looks at and we all say, oh yeah, we should totally build that. And then the rubber hits the road when we have to say, okay, what are we going to build next week or next month? And we have to make that hard decision of which of those features are the most important for us to spend our time on. We'll get to that, I'm sure, over time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Oh, we've worked pretty hard here today, I'd say, and gotten a lot of great information. Thank you so much. I do have just one final one that says that I want to listen to you. So you have an audience here of a lot of people who teach Google Photos. What would you like us to teach people? What's kind of the most important thing that you would want people to know about using Google Photos?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. I would probably say, based on what we are trying to build with Google Photos, which, as I've said, is this home for your life's memories, I would say the most important thing that you all can maybe help teach people is all of the ways that they can use to get their photo library into Google Photos as the single place to kind of house everything. I think I heard from one of you, I forget who it was, talking about like photos that were in Picasa that didn't, for some reason, make it over to Google Photos. I think there are a lot of people who use Google Photos that haven't gone back and uploaded all of their old photos from the old computer they have or from some other cloud service they're using. Helping people learn the ways that they can upload their photos that they choose into Google Photos, I think would be probably the single most important thing. Because once you've gotten that, there's all these capabilities and features and things you can do with your photos there. But I think that is the most important thing, is just getting them all into one place, into Google Photos.
Good answer. Yeah. And I know that we all do teach that, but some of it is kind of an afterthought. So I will make that more integral to.
Awesome. Yeah. And conversely, when you're teaching that and you find that the answer that you're teaching isn't as good as it could be, please let me know. And we would like to improve those flows if we can.
And along that line, the best way for people to communicate with you is your Twitter?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on Twitter. If you send me a message there, I'm quite certain to see it, at least today at my low level of tech celebrityness. I actually can read them all, which is great. And the other way, obviously, is like send feedback to Chris. I would love to keep this connection active and hear all the feedback that you can aggregate from your members. That's another great way to do it, too.
All right. Thanks. Well, I know there's lots more questions, but as a group, we will continue this conversation. I think we need to. Can we let everybody unmute and give them some applause?
I can try.
Some applause or some static.
Oh, that
will. All right. You should all be able to unmute yourselves.
All right. So thanks so much, and pack that bag and good luck and have a good time becoming a dad.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to seeing more photos, right? I mean, that's the whole reason you're doing this, so that you can get the photos if they grow up so fast, right?
Sorry, I was just saying thanks to each of you for participating in this forum, for giving me your feedback, for teaching others how to use Google Photos. It's really awesome to see. I hope each of you is a little bit proud of the work you do there. Well, thanks, and I'll hop off and hopefully hear from all of you again later.
End the meeting.
Yeah,
now.
we are. Thank you so much, David. It was wonderful, and your hands and the rest of you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.